might say Penfold is an obscure and little known band, but if you were from New Jersey and the tri state area, Penfold had a large impact on the upcoming scene that was to produce bands like Thursday, Saves the Day, Armor for Sleep, and many others. Penfold put out several EPs before disbanding in the early 2000s. Brian is extremely humble and jokingly referred to himself as a, quote, failed musician, but the band's music had a huge impact. Listen as Brian and I talk about the formation of the band in the mid-90s, how they wrote songs, and our mutual love for New Jersey. So with that said, let me welcome you to the scene. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, God. Thank you so much.
No.
Finally. Thanks for hanging in there with me, man. It has been a rocky couple months. So,
are you settled in your new place?
I mean, sort of as much as you can be in like a new place. We bought this house and it's like a 1919. And so we were living outside of Portland, Oregon, and Bellingham is about an hour and a half from Seattle, and it's right near the Canadian border.
Yeah.
So we were trying to like basically redo a lot of the house and be down there and try and get that all settled up. Luckily, my family lives up here, so they were helping, but you can see all the electrical work.
Yeah.
Still going through.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Being a homeowner is just not, I think our house was built in 1910 or something, and it's just problem after problem. We've woken up to bats like flying around in the middle.
That makes sense. Yeah. Where do you live about?
We're in Jersey. So, I grew up in Jersey, and then, after college started working in the city, and then so eventually sort of migrated into New York, and I guess spent like my late 20s and 30s there. And then I met my wife I was living in Brooklyn. We met in Brooklyn. And then during the pandemic, we had two kids, and during the pandemic, she was like, "We got to get the fuck out of here because there's no room." I was like working in a bedroom, and she was like trying to take care of two kids while I was trapped in a bedroom for 9 hours a day. And then so we bought a house. She's not from Jersey, so when we came out here, she was like, "Oh, it's actually really nice out here," because everybody's like,
it gets shit on all the time.
Yeah. And so we actually live pretty close to where I grew up. We bought a house in this town called Glen Ridge.
Okay. Yeah, I know Glen Ridge.
The kids like it. It's like we ended up having another kid once we got out here because we had the space. So now we have three.
Oh my gosh.
And, living the suburban life.
Suburban dream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So did you grow up in Livingston or?
I did, yeah. I grew up in Livingston. And that's how I met the guys in the band. When I was in high school, and the drummer of the band, he and I had biology together. And I think I drew like the Metallica logo on his book, like his paper bag book cover.
Yeah.
Sitting next to me, and I just started drawing it, and then we became friendly. And he said he played the drums, which was kind of true. And I said that I sang, which was not. I'd never sang before for anybody. So, and then he was like, he knew a guy down the street who played guitar, who went to like a Catholic school. And then, the three of us started playing together, just like covers. I was just singing, he was playing guitar. And then that guy, the other guitar player, Rich, he taught me how to play like power chords. I'd always wanted to play guitar. I owned a guitar. Every lesson you take was like, now we're going to play the Beatles. And I was like, I don't fucking play. I don't want it.
Yeah.
And so he showed me how to play power chords. And I was like, oh, this is kind of easy. And so he lent me a guitar, and I just would go home and play every night, and eventually got better. And then I started taking lessons. And then when we wanted to record a demo, it was basically the three of us, two guitars. I was singing and he was playing drums. So we recruited the drummer, Mike, his little brother, Steve, to play bass because his brother played guitar. And that became the that became Penfold. Like years later, we were probably in high school when that happened, and then we recorded a demo. I don't even remember what the name of the band was then. It was terrible, terrible music. But we just stayed together and did different iterations of that band until yeah, until we got to a point where like it actually became Penfold. But yeah, it was I've known the guys forever, so
All right,
yeah.
end of podcast. I'm just kidding.
That's the end of the story.
I actually grew up in Midland Park, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, Midland Park's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
small.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's where I grew up until I was like 23, I
Yeah.
think. Went to Rowan University.
Okay.
Also William Patterson at one point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the radio station.
yeah,
It was a big deal.
so yeah, I stayed. My whole family, my brother lived out here in Bellingham, and I did the whole, I had after school, I did the 9 to 5 train to the city
Yeah.
type thing, and I was like interning at a post production facility,
Yeah, cool.
for TV and
Yeah.
film, and it wasn't for me. It just wasn't the life that I wanted
Sure.
to live. And
Yeah.
so my brother lived out here, and I moved out with my best friend to Seattle for like a summer, and I stayed and he left, and then I eventually moved up here, and then we've been all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
We moved back to Philly for my wife to get her nursing degree and dressing.
Okay.
She's actually from like Fremont, California, so outside of
Oh, wow.
San Francisco.
Wow.
So we
Yeah,
went
you've
back.
really been around. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, man. I went to school. My first school was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But yeah, my heart has always been, my whole family moved out here. So
Yeah.
it's odd because I have nothing left in
Yeah.
New Jersey, but like my heart is
Yeah.
still so much there, in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. So
That's so cool.
I had a friend, really good friend who was living in Brooklyn too when we went to go visit him, and he had 2 kids, and I was like, dude, your apartment, like I don't even know how you can do this. Like
It's
him and his
hard.
wife were working TV production,
Yeah.
and her office space was like in the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. That especially that time. We lived on the water, and it was like every night was chaos when the pandemic hit, because it was like, there were people were letting fireworks off, and just outside, like I think everyone was cooped up, and that was all they it was like they congregated there.
Right.
And we at first I was like, this is cool, and then after a while it was like the kids can't sleep because they're just people yelling.
Not cool anymore.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Then I became that old guy who was like, get off my lawn. Yeah.
It's funny because we all become that. Like we're like, I'll never become that. Then you have kids, and you're like, I just want to fucking sleep.
Yeah.
Just please. Like
Exactly.
how old are your kids, if you don't mind?
11, 8, and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So 3 is such a cute age, but also
it is. Yeah. I know.
Storm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's boy, girl, boy.
Okay.
And it couldn't be more different, which I'm sure you're in a similar situation where it's like all the things that happened with the first 2 now with the third one. I'm like, well, you never know. He's like, he's just a completely different kid. And then the older ones are like, my oldest is really into art and, loves playing video games with his friends, would prefer to be in the house all day, and then my daughter, the middle one, is like does every activity, is like in tons of sports, has like tons of friends, and then it's just like opposites everything.
Yeah, I mean, my boys they're both boys. So
Yeah.
right now we're just in the stage of like dad is a jungle gym, and
Right.
That's all we do. Is like we were at a concert in the park yesterday.
Yeah.
And my 6-year-old was like, let's wrestle. And I was like, no, like we're in the middle of a a concert here. We don't need to be doing that. Just, come on. It's like
That's all they want. I know.
I'm touched out for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to do that. My 3-year-old is like that. He's always like, Dad, you're Dr. Octopus. I'm Spidey. And like
Right.
he has to introduce and set up the scene for me. And then it's like, then he just wants me to like throw him on the couch and
Yeah.
attack him and everything.
Like that I can do for a little
Yeah.
bit, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I've my brother is about 4 years older than me. I'm 41,
Yeah.
and his kids, my nephew is graduating high
Oh,
school.
wow. Yeah.
We're like at this really different place.
That's
Him and his wife
okay.
are like going to be empty nester soon, and we're
That's
just
crazy.
like at the start of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is super crazy.
That's cool.
So did you grew up in Livingston?
Grew up in Livingston. Yeah. I was born there. My parents are still in the house I
Oh
grew up
yeah,
there. Amazingly. Yeah, and I have an older brother. He was 4 years older than me. And he's out in Texas now, and I don't get to see him that much. He came with his kids this summer to visit, and they stayed with us for like 2 weeks. And I didn't really hung out with him in a while, so that was cool. But he got me into like underground music, I would say, because I don't, he was like, into skateboarding. Had this whole like, that vibe of like being a punk kid. And he used to sneak into New York because we were so close there,
yeah,
like go to record stores and come home with all these records. So I remember like in 8th grade, I had like a Dead Kennedys t-shirt, which
yeah.
was like, I actually think I got called to the principal's office. They made me put tape over this Dead
Yeah.
Kennedys because they were like, you don't have anything else to wear, but you can't wear that in school. But so I always was like hearing stuff before other kids, like I heard Nirvana before Nevermind came out. And I had, I was like, he had like Green Day records before Dookie came out and stuff. So I always looked up to him, and then he always got me into music, and he really got into like that New York hardcore scene,
Okay, yeah,
which I think that was sort of my gateway into underground music. And he was always a big supporter of the band because he just thought he would go see shows. And so when we started playing music, he was always, I think, a help. A lot of times he'd like sitting in a practice and be like, you know what you should call that song? And he'd give us, because he was in college. So, and he's very smart. He never stopped going to college. He's now just a professor. They did like, went all the way, got his PhD, and then
yeah.
just in school. And so his song titles and stuff were always really cool. And we were always like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we should do that.
It was like
Um,
another member of the band, just
yeah, in a way.
silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he got us like into, he went to college at Rutgers, and
Mhm.
when I was a senior in high school, he would have been a senior in college. So I was old enough to drive up there on the weekends or like on a Friday night if there was some bands playing. And he was like, he was buddies with the guys in Lifetime, and
Oh yeah.
he worked at the library with the guys from Dead Guy. And like, so uh, he was introducing me to that music, and both of those bands who he knew um, recorded at this one studio in Jersey, Tracks East. And so when we finally got our shit together, that's where we did our first demo, was there. And that's why, like, I think it turned out really good because it was just like a studio. Or I think it was the first time we stepped into a studio and came out. We're like, holy shit, we sound like a real band.
Yeah, yeah. What was that experience like?
It was wild. I mean, it was funny. All things weirdly started coming together. Like we found out about the studio because we were listening to those bands. I was going to college with the drummer, and I went to Fairleigh Dickinson together,
Okay.
Mike and I. And then Rich, our guitar player, went to William Patterson. Steve, our bass player, went to Montclair State. Mike and I are a little older by only like a year or two. And we became buddies. Another guy who went to our school was Ben, the guitar player from Dillinger's Escape Plan.
Oh,
Like we
really?
were
Yeah.
him, and he was always hanging out in the computer lab, like doing design. At the time, they weren't called Dillinger yet. I think they were still called Arcane. And he gave me their CD, and that was also recorded at the studio. And so I was asking him, I was like, "How did you record there?" He's like, "We just called them."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're like, "Do you have time?"
They want your money. Trust
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
right, yeah. So we thought like you had to be special or something. So I think we found him in the phone book and called up and booked, I want to say like 2 days. We had three songs we were going to record. And I remember we drove, it was in South River, which is just a little past New Brunswick on Route 18, like above this auto parts store. And I remember we got there the first day and we like parked and we walked to a Dunkin' Donuts. We were all like, I mean, I was probably 17. Mike was the drummer was 17. Rich was like 16. Steve, the bass player, was 15. So we were kids. And I remember we saw this dude walking down the street with like, tight like jeans and like a denim jacket with like patches on the back and long hair. And we were like making fun of him. They're like, that's probably going to be the guy who records us. And
It was,
was,
yeah.
yeah. And we met Steve Evans, who, I think we've recorded anything we've ever recorded, we've done with him since. And yeah, it was an incredible experience just being in there and so many bands we liked sort of through the scene had recorded there, but then on top of it, it was like the guy who owned it and Steve had recorded so many other things that we were all just blown away by. Like we were like, oh, this is very professional. Um, so it was cool. I mean, I think we did three songs in like 2 days, very quick on tape, right? Because nothing was
Yeah.
digital yet. And it was a blast. And then that got released as a tape, like a cassette
Yeah.
demo. And then a guy we met, I think we actually mailed the cassette to just random people. I can't even remember how we found this guy, but he was starting a record label and he was really good friends with the guy who ran Trustkill Records. And
Yeah.
so he was like, he's going to show me how to do this. And so it was his first release was our 7 inch. And yeah, it was cool. Like we were somehow like sort of kind of broke into it and realized there was this whole scene in New Jersey by way of almost accidentally. Like we recorded some songs. My brother knew people. We were going to college with kids who were playing in bands too. And like, so we would just hand our tape out and we'd get invited to shows, or we started going to shows and just bringing the tape with us and handing it to people. Like if there was another band we liked, to be like, oh, here, listen to our band,
Yeah.
which I didn't even know was a thing. And later on, playing and touring, you're like, people are doing that to you all the time. And you're like, oh,
Right.
that was a common thing. We thought we were being weird fucking kids, like handing our tapes out. But yeah, it was fun. It was an interesting time, and it felt really communal and oddly strange, like the way you communicated with people back then by phone with
Right. Yeah.
words. Like email was much less common, and if it was, it was, I felt like you would wait days to get a response. So yeah, it was a different time, but it was
What years would you say? Was that like 97?
I think 95 or 96 is when we recorded that first thing. I think it was 95. Yeah. And then no, yeah, it must have been 90. It must have been 96 when we recorded. 97 was, I think, when we started to like actually play a little bit more. I want to say I want to say 1998 was when we actually kicked it. Like I think that was when we were like, "Oh, we can play every weekend. We can, there's like shows going on everywhere. Oh, we can go. We don't have to just play in New Jersey. We can go to Pennsylvania. We can go, to Connecticut." So we started to venture out just to see what was going on out there. But yeah, it was around that time.
Were you mostly playing basement shows? Were you playing VFW halls?
It was both. I think the start was um very much VFW halls. I think couple of basements, but like, and I think the basement thing was primarily like if it was in New Brunswick,
Yeah.
it was like it was definitely a basement. But it was a lot of VFW halls, community centers, things like that. I remember early on, I think it was right after the 7 inch came out, we played this festival in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I mean, we met a bunch of bands there. That was like a cool opportunity for us because we started just chatting with people. We were shy. We were like the shyest it like we were not good at socializing and making connections at all. We were like, oh, those people don't want to talk to us. Let's get out of here. There's
Yeah.
a lot of that. Like, we should go home. It's late, kind of stuff. Um, so it took us a while to kind of come out of our shell. But that, and then I think there was a bar in New Brunswick called the Melody Bar that they
Mhm.
have good shows. And when the 7-inch came out, the guy who put it out, he got us on a show opening for that band Sam I Am.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
kind of a cool deal. And we met, that's where I think the other band that played that was X number five. And so we met those guys and we got friendly with them. And so, it was one of those things where the more you met people who were in the same boat, who were just like everyone was doing the same struggle, you're
Right.
kind oh, we can actually help each other out. And so it took us a little while to get comfortable with that notion of like people are nice and they want to help. And I don't know. I think we are always like uh just weirdly cautious about some of that stuff because we hadn't been part of that scene. I think, we sort of like stumbled into it. Whereas I think other people grew up in it more, like being
Sure.
at shows, and so they knew a lot of folks. And I think, it was like we were just a little behind the eight ball on that. I think when we were playing, we spent so much time writing and playing in our rehearsal space that we didn't get out and play shows much until after that demo came out. We started to get some attention. So,
When did Penfold become Penfold?
I think it was right before we recorded that album. So that was probably like 96 or 97. We had done a couple of demos. Um, and we did one at the studio in Hoboken. We were talking about this the other day because I was like, what were those songs? And I would say if I could compare it back then, like when we recorded that demo, which came out okay, it wasn't great, but I would say we sounded a lot more like a Quicksand ripoff back
Okay.
then, like a
Yeah.
little bit heavier. I hadn't really figured out how to sing. I hadn't really realized that I could sing, I think and I don't even know if I can, but I think the one thing that Steve Evans did for me is like he gave me a confidence boost that I didn't have. And I remember we recorded that first track. We did everything instrumental, and then I went into and did all the vocals after, and I hadn't sung yet. And then I started singing. And when I got to like the first heavy part and I really like belted it out and like my everything broke up, we finished a take and he stopped and he was like, holy shit, man, you're really good. He's like, let's do this. Let's do this. And he actually like kind of produced me
Yeah.
in a way that I hadn't done before. Like every demo we record, I just got in and sang, and the guys were like, great, because they were just engineers. So like, great, you're done. I'll mix it and you
Right.
can go home. So it was the first time I think I had that. And I feel like he taught me, he was teaching me like how to sing syllables correctly and just shit nobody teaches you. Um, so that gave me the boost. But yeah, so I think Penfold became Penfold. I think we recorded that demo in Hoboken. It sounded kind of like Quicksand. It's pretty shitty. And then I think we just sat down and we're like, let's just scrap everything and start writing some new songs. And that became the first demo we recorded with Steve. And I don't remember what the name of our band was before for that previous demo from Hoboken, but I think when we went into the studio with Steve, we were definitely Penfold. And the name just came from us sitting in the drummer and bass player's house, and that cartoon Danger Mouse was on
Oh
while we
yeah.
were talking, and Penfold's the hamster sidekick in that. And
Yeah.
our drummer was like, what about Penfold? And we were like, yeah, that's dumb. Let's
Yeah.
do that. And then there's like a bomb in the beginning of Danger
Right.
Mouse
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like he just went on his computer and like I don't even know what program we used back then, maybe like MS Paint.
Paint. Yeah.
He wrote Penfold in that impact font, and then somebody drew a shitty bomb with like a fuse, and then we made stickers, and that was like our
Nice.
first thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was
or,
going to ask where the name came from, and
yeah,
that's it. Typically, you hear like
yeah,
either it's like an inside joke
yeah,
or just like very flippantly,
yeah,
like yeah, we just came up with that, and that's
yeah,
it's not this complicated
yeah.
like we were sitting there thinking about philosophy and
No, not at all. And the amount of times after that we're like, man, we should not have picked that name. But then it just sticks. And then the other thing you realize is nobody really gives a shit about what the name of your band is if they're enjoying the music. So,
right. Yeah.
uh, yeah,
When you guys were like before you came Penfold, you were,
yeah,
kind of sounded like a
yeah,
quicksand ripoff, as you
yeah.
said. Was there an intention to sound like quicksand, or was it like this is how it came out?
I think we were always just sort of influenced by, like any band, like the things we were listening to at that time. And I think, I was talking to somebody about this recently. They were asking, 'cause I was talking about like the type of music I listen to, and like, I've never heard of any of these bands. And I'm like, well, the way I heard music was my brother brought stuff home. And then
Mhm.
there used to be this show on MTV called 120 Minutes. It was on midnight to 2 a.m. every Sunday when I was in high school. And, my parents wouldn't let me stay up and watch it. So I would set the VCR, and then every Monday I'd come home from school and I'd watch the tape. And if there were bands on it I like, I'd head to the mall and try to see if I could find a record. And, so I was hearing all these interesting bands, and like, we liked Quicksand because we had listened to Walter's other bands before that, because that was the shit my brother was into. But we also, like, I was really into Dinosaur Jr. and like I think Hum had come out for me. So we listened to a lot of that. And on 120 minutes, I remember coming home from school one day, it was probably like 1994, and the video for Seven by Sunny Day Real Estate was
Yeah.
on there. So I immediately went and bought that album. And so I think it was influences from everything. And so, like, the reason I said we sounded like Quicksand is realistically it was just because we had the first song where we like down tuned to drop D on that, and we were doing some like palm muting shit. I think there
Yeah.
was only one song that sounded like Quicksand, but it was like very clearly we're messing with that style a bit. And then I think all of the influence, because we all listen to a lot of the same stuff, but then we also all had our other things. Like our guitar player was really into hardcore, like, and like screamy stuff. Where I was more into like I said, like Hum, Dinosaur Jr., so stuff that was a little like louder and heavier, Mogwai, stuff like that. Our bass player was like really into, shoegazer stuff, loved the Smiths. And then Mike, the drummer, he literally fucking listened to everything. I mean, and so it was like, I think all the stuff we collectively enjoyed influencing us, and then all the other stuff that we kind of separately didn't talk to each other about,
Right. Right.
also probably had some influence on that. And the way we wrote was, one of us would just come in with like a little piece of something, and then we kind of build around that. And so there wasn't any like, it was very democratic in that regard, where it was just like, oh, I've got an idea, and then we'd hash it out. And sometimes we'd hash it out and be like, this sucks, let's not do that. And then
Yeah.
other times it would kind of turn into a song, and we'd build it around that. But I think there was never a conscious decision to like sound a certain type of way. Um, I think things just sort of evolved naturally. And if I go back to that first demo, then the CD we released, and then like the last one, you can kind of hear it where it's like, I think the first stuff's a little heavier, second stuff's a little more melodic and hooky, and then the last stuff is like intentionally experimental
Yeah.
for who we were at the time, for like a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking 21-year-olds who didn't know shit about making music.
So like when you guys came to write, you said it was a very democratic process. Was there mostly because I usually
Yeah.
think being in bands myself and stuff like that, usually like a guitarist comes in and they're like, I got
Yeah.
this like little lick or something like that. But like
Yeah.
was it everybody contributing and equally, or was it more like I don't know,
It
one person was doing a little bit more heavy lifting in terms?
I would say for the main stuff, it was either me or Steve, the bass player. And I think for two reasons. Steve kind of plays the bass like a guitar. I think it's part of our sound that makes it a little different and weirder. Like there's a lot of melody going on there, but also he played guitar. So sometimes he'd come in and be like, "Oh, let me see your guitar," and he'd be like, I came up with this thing the other night," and we'd be like, "Oh, that's cool," and he'd like show us how to play it, and we'd do it. So I think the main sort of melody riff or something would either come from him or I. And then I think Rich was always good at building on top of that. So he was more like, okay, I get the vibe. I see what we're going for here. Now I'm going to figure out what my part is. Occasionally he'd come in with something, and it was always like really interesting where I'll be like, oh wow, I'd never have thought to play that. I think his brain musically, his brain was wired differently, which I always really appreciated, the way he would come up with stuff. And there's some song like there's songs on that our last record where like it would literally start from a bass part, like Steve would
Yeah.
come have a bass part and he'd play it and we'd be like, that's cool. And then, and I think for Mike playing drums, I think he was good at being like, I know what I have to do here. It's going to be like this or it's going to be like that. So, but sometimes like he would get involved musically too in like adding other elements. We were recording and we did like keyboard stuff. He would occasionally write lyrics and just be like, hey, I wrote this thing and send it to me. And I'd be like, cool. Like I think there's a song on that last record where he wrote lyrics and sent them to me. And I'm like, these are cool. I'm like, I'm like, there's too many words in here for what we're doing, but let me take pieces of this and I'll kind of use this to build the lyrics and stuff. So, I think we were all good friends on top of it. So even
That
in
helps.
yeah, even in like the tense moments, it was never
Yeah.
really that tense. Like I think about other bands we played with or were friends with where they talk about how much drama there was, and I'm like, oh, ours is not that bad. Ours is
Yeah.
like we're mad because somebody canceled practice at the last minute, like that. So
I
yeah.
was talking to last person I had on was Damon Atkinson from Braid,
Oh yeah.
and Hey Mercedes, and he was talking about how like their first European tour was with the Get Up Kids,
Oh wow.
and how they were so like the Get Up Kids were way more experienced, but there was always like they were just there and they had fun. I was like, how do you get through band tension? And I was like,
Yeah.
it's just humor,
Yeah.
like that.
Oh
That's how
yeah.
we survived. But he's like, we were sitting there in the van with the Get Up Kids, like going around Europe, like as they're like actively like
Breaking up.
like just like having fights
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Yeah.
he was just like, it was a lot less
Yeah.
intense for us like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It really wasn't. Humor was a huge part of it. I think also we always had like a friend. Like if we were doing a little tour or something, we had a couple of good buddies who like merch guy, photographer, both, and so like we always brought somebody with us because I think it helped if there was any tension, it definitely
Right.
helped diffuse it. And then I think, we didn't do a ton of touring, but the other bands that we would do stuff with, like we're friends with them and that helped. And so you prank each other, you do dumb shit. Um, I still remember once like we were doing like musical chairs in the vans. So like it was slowish traffic on the highway. So we'd like two of us would hop out of the van, run and get in their van, and then they'd jump out and you're just doing dumb shit like that. And it's funny. It's interesting now to think of it too, because like you couldn't document anything. Like
Right. Yeah.
you could, but you needed a guy with like a video camera. Like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
all the photos I
Big,
have from all
big
the
shoulder
photos,
cam.
yeah, all the photos I have from tours are developed film from like shitty cameras that look terrible. And um I always think back, there's some shows we played where I was like, oh man, we sounded so good, and there's no record of
Right.
that
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. How would you even capture that scene
I know.
at that time?
Yeah.
Which I mean, I think kind of makes it that much more special. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's kind of like
Yeah.
my personal opinion. And you see, like nowadays, mostly, I mean, I'm guilty of it
Yeah.
myself. The last time I saw like rival schools or quicksand or American football, I just saw American football and I was like, phone it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm never gonna watch this again. Like, why am I not in the moment?
Yeah.
And I think it was cool because like my sort of my introduction to Penfold was my girlfriend at the time, I had a friend base of three different girls, and they one of them became my girlfriend. But it's a shout out to my friend Megan. They would put shows on at the Elks Lodge in Ridgewood, New Jersey,
Yeah.
and somehow Megan got a hold of Penfold or something like that, and my girlfriend like told me at the time, she was like, we drove to the shore, and Megan put on this CD and was by some band named Penfold, and it was the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like it was so sad. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and that's was like my introduction to Penfold as the
That's so
saddest
funny.
band.
It's so funny because I think back to, I still cringe at some of the lyrics when I have to say, we've been practicing again, gearing up for this festival, and it's like, man, what? It, it's not my stuff either. Like the way I always wrote was like storytelling. I would imagine a something like a scenario, and I'd write
Right.
the perspective of like one of the people in the scenario, or like I'd finish reading a book and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna write sort of the narrative of that, my interpretation of what happened in that. Just because I not to say like I haven't gone through, any major moments in my life, but I always felt like if I did write something that was very personal, it was rare. Like I think that on the first record we put out, there's a song on there called M that's about like a family member. But I think it was my cousin. She was, basically like the shitty version of the story is like my aunt was married to this guy, and before they got pregnant, and before she had her daughter, he was just like, you know what, I don't fucking love you, and I don't give a shit about this baby, and he left. And then I got to meet this baby and watch her start to grow up, and I was like, that's insane that like somebody would would do that.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
now, like older as a parent, I think it's even more insane.
Yeah.
But that was like I think the first time I felt like I was writing something from my perspective. And there's a couple of songs on that, like this the our second record or sort of final record was really about like my grandfather passed away, and at the same time my really good friend's dad very suddenly passed away, and I started having these really weird dreams about like talking to my grandfather. And so that had this pervasive, like that entire record is sort of about like trying to come to terms or understand this idea of mortality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's stuff in there, like there's stuff that's personal, and then there's stuff that I still kind of reached into what I was consuming at the time and kind of used that as ways to tell stories. But yeah, man, I don't know. I get it's so interesting even now, like as new people discover us, which is happening, which I find to be totally insane. There's a lot of like, man, these lyrics are so sad, and I really connect with them. Like, I think that's amazing, and I love it. Without ever really knowing that that would happen for any.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What like you I'm assuming like did you guys hold on to I don't know, what did you think of the label of
Oh,
emo? Did
yeah.
you know what's coming?
I mean, I remember us hearing the word the first time we played a show up in Connecticut, and it was like a radio station sponsored thing, and the DJ called us emo, and I was like, what is it? I hadn't heard the term. Um, and even my brother, who was like the cool guy who knew everything, he's like, I don't, I've heard that. He's like, but I don't know if that's what it is. And and then very much like we started to get labeled that. I think I remember early on people called us emo core, which I
Yeah.
don't even know. Maybe that like that subtle, extra word helped a
Core.
little.
Yeah.
But I think there was a phase where we were like, fuck that, we're not emo, But I also think um I think it helped, in the same way everybody does genres. I think it helped people sort of know what you were in for when you'd like, you'd see those show flyers, and it would be
Right.
like, we'd play, you remember New Jersey. It would be like, you'd hear a ska band, you'd hear like an indie rock band, you'd hear a hardcore band, you'd
Right.
hear
Right.
a emo
Yeah.
band. And it was just like whoever wanted to play was kind of on it. So I think it was okay, but I think there was definitely a moment there where we were like, we thought it was a bad word. and then I think we kind of got over it. And even now, like this Best Friends Forever Fest, the way we got on that, um, which
She's
was so
so
fun.
fucking stacked, by the way.
I know it's
It's
a great show,
insane.
and it's funny too. I was in Italy for work. I had just flown out, and I got a text from a couple of my friends, not about us playing, but about the festival. They were like, "We should go this year." You know, it was like
Yeah.
the flyer with the question marks on it. You know, some of the guys in the band were like, "Holy shit!" You know, like Minus the Bears getting back together, and fucking Super Chunk and like all these bands we haven't seen. We should go. A couple of my other buddies were like, we should go, and then a day later, I get a text from Tom, who runs Washed Up Emo,
Yep.
and he's like, "Hey, would you guys want to play this thing?" And I'm like, I don't know if we could do it. And he's like, so all credit to Tom and his girlfriend who suggested to him. She was like, "How come Penfold's not playing?" And he's like, "That's a great idea." So
Yeah.
he messaged the promoter and was like, "I know you're looking for other bands." And then so the promoter reached out to us and asked, and you know, I asked the guys, and they were all like, "Yeah, let's do it." So, but it's been, I mean, we had a little, we did a tour of Japan in like 2012 or something, where we got back together and played, which was insane.
I
Also,
was say, how does that even happen? Like, you go to Japan
yeah,
of all places.
I mean, it's funny. One, it's funny how I'm sure you probably talked to some other bands, like the culturally, the way they love music in other countries and specifically Japan and like Tokyo is very different than here, where it's like it's I think it's more just sort of woven into the culture there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we did a reunion show at Maxwell's in Hoboken in 2011 because they re-released two different labels re-released both of our records on vinyl. And then they asked, they're like, "Would you guys get back together?" We said, "Yeah." We did like a sold out show there. And then some kids from Japan came to see that show. And then they asked us if we would ever go to Japan. And we're like, "Sure." I mean, I was like, whatever,
Why
I don't know
not?
what's gonna happen. And then they actually did email us, got in touch, and we realized it was a real thing. I think a lot of it has to do with our first album was put out by a label in the UK, and
Okay.
and so it had international distribution. Like it was an import to buy it in New Jersey. I
Oh,
think
really?
it was like an 8 song EP that cost $21 at vinyl, you know, because it was imported from the UK. And so yeah, I think because of the global distribution from that, we got like people knew us there. And so they asked us to play. We thought it was a joke, and then we realized it was real. We went out and we did like 5 sold out shows in Tokyo, and it was insane. Um,
That is
awesome.
very
And we
insane.
were like, we're gonna do this every year, and then we never did it again. But that was cool. So, but that was the last time we played, and even I think getting back together this time and the rehearsals and stuff, it's been a little, you know, shaky.
Yeah, how so?
I think just like we haven't played together in a while. Some of these songs are pretty old.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and just like even equipment wise, like, you know, our guitar player he just texted today. It's like, because he's been using some of his old equipment, but it's like not in great shape and he doesn't love it. So he like bought a new guitar today. He was sending us pictures of it. Um, but yeah, like trying to get the sound right, trying to find a place to rehearse, trying to get everybody's schedules together. And then we'll do things like I think we're great. Repetition is good for us, like muscle
Yeah.
memory. But we have these moments where like we'll do like every week we're practicing, and then something comes up. Somebody's like, "I can't do it this weekend," and then we're like, "Okay," and then they can't do it the next weekend. Somebody else, and then all of a sudden it's like a big gap, and then we get back together again. It's like we forgot half of the stuff we remembered last time.
It's so much harder when you're older to be in a
Yeah,
band. It
yeah.
just is.
I'm leaving for. I'm going to Bulgaria tomorrow for
Oh my
work.
gosh.
And I'm there through the weekend. And so I'm like, "Hey guys, I can't practice this weekend. Let's do it when I get back." And then our guitar player's like, "Oh, I'm on vacation with the family when you get back. I don't get back until this date." And then the bass player's like, "Oh, that's when I leave for
Yeah,
vacation."
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When are we gonna do this? So yeah, it's harder now. Yeah.
What do you do for work, by the way?
I work in advertising. So
Okay.
I went to school for film.
Me too.
Like, yeah, I got into like graphic design in doing that. And I almost by accident, like I wanted to do more special effects stuff. And I was like learning how to edit and I was learning 3D animation. I got into like CD multimedia authoring, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And then by way of that was like learning how to do design and in junior year of college got an internship at like a creative agency. Did it again my senior year and then they hired me right out and then I just like kind of made my way up. A year there, I went to another place. A year there, started sending my resume to like places in New York, and then I got hired in New York. And yeah, so I went from like being a graphic designer to like an art director, and then to a creative director. Now I do like like we're going to shoot a commercial. That's what I'm
Oh,
for.
nice. Yeah.
But now I work. So I worked in advertising for like 25 years at creative agencies. I just went brand side so now I run creative at Bose, the audio
Oh,
company,
yeah. Awesome.
which is was kind of a nice transition because
Yeah.
music's a big part of that and it's been fun. Like I've had some fun meetings with, people just to talk about like music and bands and cultural stuff. So that's been cool. But yeah, I think like I was, it's funny when I interviewed for the job, I was talking to my boss now, and he's like, similar story, like, was into punk rock, played in bands. And we were both like, in this situation where like, I don't think I could be a professional doing what I do if it wasn't for playing music and understanding how hard you have to work and how much effort and energy you have to
Yeah.
put in that. No, like not people will help you, but not if like they're also putting in a lot of work and
Right.
effort. So if they see you being lazy or if you're not putting that in, you're not going to get the help you want. And so I think that whole DIY ethic of like nobody's going to help you but yourself, but if you work your ass off, you can figure out a way to do it, kind of bled into my professional career. Um, and I think gave me that boost of like motivation that I never thought I would have. Like in college, I was never like, oh, I can't wait to go have a
Right.
job,
Yeah.
somewhere. So,
The most disillusioned I ever became was after my actually like interned at like a small punk label in Glassboro.
wow.
And like literally all I was doing was they sold CDs online on
Yeah.
eBay. And so like all I was doing was like scanning shit and like
Yeah.
um but like after I graduated, my neighbor owned a post production company. And so he was like, you can come intern with me. And I'll never forget, like, there was this 19-year-old kid in there doing 3D animation, probably doing Maya or something like that.
Yeah.
He just learned. And he was also teaching it at
Yeah.
like a university in New York. And his name was it Corey? I forget what his name was, but he was like, you can just come hang out with me and like,
Yeah.
like kind of see what I'm doing. And I was like, so you're telling me the education that
Yeah.
I just dropped God knows how much on, all I needed to do was learn a program really well
Yeah.
and like and be really good at that,
Yeah.
And I was like, that was the most disillusioned. I was like, I've made some serious
Yeah.
wrong life choices
I,
at this
I,
point.
it was shocking. It's funny that you say that because that was how I felt too. Like I look back now at even for college, I commuted. I didn't want to live there because I wanted to play music on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I'd arranged my schedule to be like classes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're heading to, Massachusetts, and then we're back Sunday, and then, have Monday off kind of thing. But at the end of school there, I was interning. Everything I was learning was interning, or, I would go to like Barnes and Noble and steal the CD-ROMs out of the book. That had the free
Yeah.
shit on them and be like, oh, I'm going to learn by this. And, I think it was like that's how you learn. And I sounds terrible now, but I was saying to my wife, because we've got 3 kids, that we're gonna have to have a conversation about college at some
Oh
point.
God. Yeah.
I hope it's just not a thing anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because I look back and I'm like, Yeah, there were things about it that I liked. I met a lot of friends. I think the band did well because we met people in college, but like personally, I don't know that I learned anything special there. Everything
Right.
I learned was like by doing it myself or from other kids who were doing it and were like, "Oh, did you know you can do this with this software?"
Right.
Like, "Oh, shit, no. Yeah, and I think that's yeah, it's just wild. It's funny that you're in a similar situation.
I mean, now I'm a mental health therapist, and I've been
Oh, there
doing
you
that
go.
for like
Yeah,
complete career shift.
yeah,
After that, I mean, and New York was way more. There was way more opportunities there than there
yeah,
was, anywhere. I mean, unless
yeah.
you're in LA, right?
Right,
Like,
right, yeah.
so Seattle was not bumping with,
No,
you know, that video production at all.
yeah,
I'm kind of interested in just like what connection do you feel to these songs now? Like as you're playing them or reconnecting with them.
yeah. They have weird. I don't want to say different meanings, but they have like a um the context is different now. Like as an adult, as a parent, as somebody who's had different experiences, I feel like there's still subject matter I can relate to in ways where like I think it's less about at the time I think their meaning I felt like every time I played them, especially if they were some of the more heavily emotional ones, like I could get swept up in that as we were performing, especially when you're performing in front of people. It's harder to do that when you're rehearsing with the guys, but I think now there's this context of like getting older and realizing even for like reconnecting with the guys in the band, like we were really close. Now we're chatty on like a text message, but like
Right.
we don't hang out like we used to. And so the fact that the music's brought us back together in this way, I find that to be emotionally stimulating so that I can get over sort of some of the cheesiness of like, here's a 17-year-old's lyrics about, somebody in love or somebody dealing with like whatever's going on in their life. Um, and so I can kind of put that context around it a little bit, and they're impactful in that way. And then I think the other thing that's just been interesting is the songs I really enjoy playing now are probably the ones that are least popular ones, just
Yeah.
because oh yeah, we were really trying to do something different here. This was tough to play. Um, and I can't speak for the other guys in the band. I think a lot of it right now too is if you were to ask them, I think they'd be like, I don't know, I'm just trying to fucking remember how
Right.
to play it. But I think there's because the context is different, I think there's still meaning. But we have talked about like, could we write something today and what would that sound like? And I don't know.
Yeah.
Haven't tried yet. Um, but I don't know what would come out. I don't know like what I would write a song about if I was going to write something today with these guys. I've dabbled in like solo stuff here and there in the last decade of just like demos of shit that nobody will ever hear. Um, but in terms of like this band and what it's always been about, I think it's like it would be tough for me to figure out what I would want to say, at least right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
think it's a common theme too. Like when there's a couple bands that I've talked to and just after they've broken up where just been like, I just didn't have anything else to say.
Yeah.
Like, and trying to write new music, it's like I got nothing to say.
Yeah.
Like, and so I don't,
Yeah.
at this point. And I think that's like an interesting concept, just in the sense that like when you're young, you have so much to say, right?
Yeah.
Like you have so much. I think it's depending on the person, like
Yeah.
emotion or what you think about things, and have so much to say, and then what's it like when that's over. I mean, like, what was it like for you transitioning out of being in Penfold? Like, how did the band, I guess,
Yeah.
decide to call it quits, and then what was that transition like?
It was the calling it quits thing was weird because it was we had just finished playing a show. We had like a really shitty show somewhere where like that happens occasionally where like you get there, you play, there's either like nobody there or there's a lot of people there and you have like an off night. It doesn't sound good. I want to say it was the latter. Like it was like a big thing and we kind of played shitty. And so like you get that sense when you're leaving, like, nobody gave a shit that we played. And so I think there was this feeling of who cares anymore?
Yeah.
Certainly these people didn't. And then so you're down on yourself. And then Steve, who's our bass player, he was getting ready to like do his master's, which eventually he wanted to do his PhD. And he was kind of like hinted at, like, hey, I don't think I'm really going to have much time to do this anymore. I think I had just gotten like a full-time thing job wise, where I'm like actually making money and thinking like, oh, I can move out. And we were young. This is probably like 2002.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, I think this was the shitty part. Um, we had finished recording the second album, and back then for booking a tour, it would be you send a CD, you call the club or the promoter or whatever. You're like, did you listen to the demo? And they're like, yes, no, whatever. I'm looking for these dates, whatever. And so I was in the middle of trying to book like a proper tour for us. And it was at the point where I would call up clubs and they would be like, yeah, I've like, it used to be like you'd have to work really hard or like we couldn't get a spot at a venue. It would be like, we have to find, 15 kids throwing basement shows across the
Right.
US, which is hard to do in order.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this got to the point where like I would send a CD to like a proper club, like the Black Cat in DC or something. And then I'd call and they'd be like, yeah, we've heard of you guys. Like, we'd love to have you. So it's getting to that point where I'm like, oh, we can book a tour. Like we have some small level of clout right now where I could do this. And that's sort of when things ended. So it's like I was frustrated because I was like, we're finally at a point where like people know who we are now.
And the scene's kind of exploding, like
Yeah.
at that
Yeah,
point
for
too. Yeah.
exactly. And we were like there was interest from some labels and things like that. And it just kind of ended very abruptly. And I think because of that, I had a hard time letting go. I know Mike, our drummer, I felt like he had a tough time with it too. He and Rich, the guitar player, and we continued to play together, just the three of us, and we like formed a new thing and we started like writing some new songs. We ended up meeting another guy who played bass and we formed a new band. And again, that one was tough. Like I think that kind of happened very slowly over the course of like a few years and got to the point where um, both Mike and Rich were working as sound engineer, like interns at studios. And so, we're recording shit for free late night, like, Sunday at midnight. We'd show up and like record stuff because they let us use the equipment because they didn't have anything booked. And we're just trying to figure it out. And we ended up putting out like an EP and then breaking up right after that. So nothing happened really with it. But it was fun. But I had trouble like letting go. And so I was doing things like moonlighting, playing in other bands. Like there's this other band from Jersey. Their guys were younger than me, but Penfold had played with them a few times. They're called Prevent Falls,
Hmm.
and they were on Equal Vision. And like they lost, I think their guitar player and drummer quit and joined that band Armor for Sleep.
Oh, okay.
And then so they were like without a drummer and a guitar player. So then like I was filling in on guitar and playing shows for them. And they got this guy to play. They had a couple of different drummers that I played with, but they got this one guy to play drums. Later on, we sort of Prevent Falls. We did a couple shows. It was not working out. They The singer kind of like ended things and then he started a new band and I wrote a couple of parts and songs things here and there. We recorded a little demo of like it was much heavier stuff. But the drummer we had was this guy who was incredible drummer, and he quit because he ended up being the accordion player for the Dropkick Murphys, and now he's their guitar player. Um, but it was just so funny because it was like at every turn, everything I tried to do after Penfold, it would be like, it's going great. And then like, 'cause I even remember that band we put out, we recorded a demo we got it out into the world. We opened up for Hey Mercedes at like some place in Boston. We're like this. I'm like, this is gonna be cool. It'll be like a new band. And I was playing guitar, and the other guy and I would like share vocals a little bit. And yeah, and then that guy left and it kind of fell apart. We tried to do it a few more times, but it never really went anywhere. But his songwriting was really cool and complicated and different. And I liked that because it was different than what I was used to doing. But yeah, I think it took a while, and I think I want to say it was like maybe 2007. I kind of was like, ah, fuck it. I'm not gonna. This is too hard to do, and I was working ridiculous hours at my job and traveling a lot for work, and I kind of gave up on it, and it felt like weirdly like letting go of something I wasn't ready to let go of.
Yeah.
Um, that's when I started to get like tattoos that were representative of me being a failed musician. 'Cause it was like, I was like, that was my way to deal with it. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It was hard. And then years later, I would, I'm trying to remember when I moved to Brooklyn, end of the 2010s, and I moved out there and just like I bump into all these fucking guys who played in bands the same time who are now living out there, like at a bar or something. And it rekindled things a little bit. We're like
Yeah.
playing again. I started writing music again. And my good buddy, who was like a touring musician, whenever he was in not touring, he would like live in I had like a 2 bedroom, but it was just me. And he would take the other bedroom. And so he was playing stuff and he'd ask me to like fill in. I'm like play bass here and there. And so I was trying to stay connected to it again in weird ways, as much as I could. But it was tough to let go of. And then once I had kids, it was just like that was really my wife was like, you gotta fucking put these guitars somewhere. There's no room. We gotta make room for cribs and toys.
Right. Right.
That was once that stuff went into like storage, it was like hard to get back to it. But
So
yeah.
where's that stuff live now?
Well, it was funny. We moved into the house here 5 years ago. About our second year in, we started to do some remodeling. So we did it's a 3 stories with a finished basement, and so the third floor was like 2 bedrooms and a half bath and like not a little, a big cedar closet. And my wife and I were like, what if we turn that into a master bedroom with like a nice bathroom and stuff like that? And so we did that. It's great. I love it. We're like separated from the kids now, which is nice. We're all on the same floor. And then we did some other stuff. But she she didn't tell me she had the contractors build a special closet for all my gear.
That's awesome.
So like there was when we go up the stairs, there's these two crawl space doors, and she converted one of them into like my
That's
closet.
awesome.
They built the shelving so you can slide guitars into it, and I have like 12 guitars in cases. So I was like, oh my God, it was very thoughtful of her to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then I got the rest of the stuff. Now that we have a house, we have a basement. So like all the amps are in the basement. The kids just tell me everything's too loud. They're like not pleased with the volume. So,
I'll demo stuff and
yeah.
and whatever. My son will listen to it. And one day in the car, he was like, "I think you need to practice more." I was like, "I appreciate your candor, but like, when did you go from loving my songs to critiquing that?"
No, they're the worst. They're the worst critic. My daughter has an ear to like we've done a couple of music things for her. It's similar to how I felt about taking lessons, which is I wanted to learn, but I just hated like there's something torturous about But she's got like we have a piano here, and she was taking piano for a bit, and she's got like she can hear something and play it, which is I have a similar thing, which is like I can't sight read music. I can read music. I can read tablature, but I've been trying to get her to learn to sight read. But I can hear something and then play it.
Yeah, same here.
And she's I'm watching her do it, and I'm like, we gotta. I keep saying to my wife, I'm like, she stopped piano for a bit. I'm like, she'll get back to it. She'll get
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
it. So I hope, and then we have my friend has a shitty little drum set that he likes to bang on. So fingers crossed. But
What's your favorite guitar in your collection?
I have a Telecaster. It's like a 52 reissue,
Nice.
and uh, and I really really love it. And I think it sounds great. It feels great. It's heavy, but I love it. And then I've got for the electric guitars, I've got a Jaguar and I've got a Gibson SG. Um, and the SG is like that's the Penfold guitar. We recorded and played everything on that. But I brought it to practice, and I'm like, nah, I like the Telecaster better. So I think I'll be using that. And then I have a bunch of like uh just random. I have like a two acoustics that I love. I've got this smaller Taylor that sounds really nice and is probably the thing I reach for the most because it's just convenient. It's there. We've got this really big old Guild like Dreadnought acoustic electric. It's just like, your arms like this over it.
Yeah.
But it sounds great. And then I've got like a Dobro steel guitar. I've got this really shitty old acoustic that I would use for like recording just demo-y stuff on. It's super light. I've got a banjo. I've got a lap steel. Just like
That's
I
awesome.
just went on a buying spree
Yeah.
when I was living alone in Brooklyn. I would often just go to like the music store and be like, when you have no kids and like no responsibility,
Right. Yeah.
oh, well, that amp's cool. I'm gonna spend like $1,500 on this tiny, you know,
Yeah.
30-watt amp and bring it home. So I don't do that anymore. But
Would your wife allow you to do that? It's the question.
yeah, all the money goes to the kids now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing, toys, camps, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, camps are a savior during the
Oh,
summer.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah. What's like a band that you wish that you had gotten to play a show with, like that maybe you didn't necessarily get to?
Um, oh man, I mean, bands from that time period
Yeah.
would be. I'm trying to think. Oh man, I'd say like Get Up Kids. Well, I always really liked those guys. Texas is the Reason.
Yeah.
I ended up like years later, I played with Garrett from that band. Like we
Oh
did
yeah.
a big show together and chatted a bit, and he was lovely.
Hey, you're gonna get to play with them again.
I know it's cool. It's cool, like when seeing those bands. Uh, there's probably bands that I really looked up to that stopped playing right before we started playing. That I would have loved to have played with, like Sunny Day Real Estate's a big one. I love those guys. Shudder to Think is another band that I love listening to. Um, Jawbreaker, all that stuff. Again, they're playing the fest
Yeah.
also. Yeah, stuff like that. Quicksand, Rival Schools. Some of those bands came after
Right. Right.
they got back together. And then there's some bands like I found like one of our first shows we played with like Converge and Piebald, and I had no idea.
Really?
Like we were like it was a matinee show, and we just showed up and played first, and then I think we left,
Yeah.
went and got like food, and came back and caught like the tail end of We didn't even know who they were.
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
heard of those bands, and I was like, oh my god, we played with these fucking awesome bands and missed it. Promise Ring, I would have liked to play. I remember seeing them play a couple of times and being really like loved their energy. Um, yeah, like American Football, all those bands that I think we were sort of similar time frames. Maybe we were like a year or two later,
Yeah.
and probably never got to the point where like we had really. I think we're like, if they were still playing towards the tail end of stuff, there might have been a chance to do that. Because towards the end, we got to play with like, we're playing with Jets to Brazil and Rainer Maria. And, we had some good good shows there. Yeah, that were fun. But yeah,
Was there a
I think
specific like towards the tail end? Were there specific venues that you guys really like to play as opposed to others? Like I know like Wayne Firehouse was a big one.
yeah.
Skaters World at one
Yes.
point. Yeah.
Gators World was fun. I saw Jimmy Eat World and Get Up Kids there.
Oh, that would have been a killer tour.
It was great, and I liked Skaters World. We played there one time. I liked that a lot. My favorite, I loved Wayne Firehouse. I loved the VFW halls. Um, and I remember we played Wayne Firehouse with it was Planes Mistaken for Stars and Taking Back Sunday.
Nice.
And early days of like
Yeah.
of those guys of Taking Back Sunday. Like I didn't even know who they were. And that was a blast. But I always like the basement and VFW shows. I feel like that was really where we shined because it was like we didn't have to worry about a PA so much as it was just like
Right.
it set up and we played. Um, Later on, like as we were playing more clubs and stuff, Maxwell's was our favorite.
Yeah.
And it's just like the vibe there. And I think we were also a little bit older, so like we were never big drinkers, but there was something fun about like having a beer and getting a bowl of pasta for free because they did that.
Yeah.
That was and that this sound was just really fucking good there because the room was so small. That was one of my favorites. But I still remember there was a spot in near here actually, Bloomfield Ave Cafe.
Yeah, I played the Bloomfield Ave
Yeah.
Cafe.
And I
Yeah.
remember we made them so mad because we played there once and all the bands were playing on the stage and we set up on the floor because there were people there to like see us and that was
Right.
like our thing. So we're like, we don't want the PA, just to have the PA be the vocals. And the guy who ran it was like just pissed. And then, and it was great. It was fucking great because it was like everybody crowded around us in a circle and
Yeah, that's awesome.
and it was like we always end with this one song and everybody bum rushes us and like the crowd, like everybody they grab the microphone and they sing along with us and it becomes like this thing and after the show he came up to us and he was like that was actually really cool. He's like I'm sorry I'm not mad at you guys. And then anytime we played there again he was like floor and we were like yeah, yep.
Nice.
But yeah, that was a fun place. Though like after we got through it that first time, I think we played there. I played there a couple of times with the other bands we had after. Also, it was fun.
That was a weird era too. Just I remember so like I was playing my own band in like 2004, 2005, but there's this weird shift. I remember in the industry where it became more of like a pay to play type
Yeah,
thing where it was like I remember the Bloomfield Ave Cafe was like you got to sell these tickets,
yeah,
and I was like like
yeah,
I don't want to I don't want to be a ticket salesperson. You
yeah,
know what I mean? If
yeah.
people
Isn't
want to
that the
come, they
end
can
job?
come.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
it was just it slowly shifted. And I think a lot of the VFW halls and all that stuff just kind of like drifted away.
yeah,
And that's what I thought was so unique about that scene in Jersey, or just even I've talked with a lot of other
yeah,
people about this, and just even the scene in Champaign Urbana with Hung
yeah,
and American Football and all those guys.
yeah.
Like, is there something like that now? Does that
I don't
exist very
know.
much? Very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. It's wild. Like the community aspect of it, the word of mouth, the way like you knew if there was a show at like a church or a VFW hall that like there were just going to be people there. Like
Right.
you show up and there would be kids in the fucking parking lot and you'd see a lot of, especially in Jersey, it was like a lot of the same kids, but then, people bringing more people in and, there was the M&M Hall in Old Bridge. That was another one that was
Yeah.
great. That's where we did our last show was there and it was great. We showed up. The capacity was 150 people. 300 people showed up.
Wow.
And we were like, I remember walking in and being like, oh fuck, like we have to turn people away. And this older woman, Sue, ran it, and she was great. She was like punk rock mom. Everybody like knew her, and so I went up to her and I was like, "What do you think about we play? You let half of the kids in, we play, they leave, you let the other half in, we play again." And she was like, "Yeah, okay, we could do
That's
that." So
pretty cool. That's
we did
rad.
2 back-to-back shows. I was toast at the end. Like my voice was gone. The second show was probably a bad idea, but it was a blast to do that. Exhausting, but super fun. That we were able to like not have to turn people away.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that at a club today.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I know scene wise, like I don't know. I think about what's going on today and like even the way people have to promote music today. I have a really good friend. He lives out in North Carolina now, but he grew up here and we had a really long phone conversation the other day. He played in this band called Outsmarting Simon. Um, and then he went on to like be a touring guitarist in like a bunch of well-known bands and he put out some solo stuff and working on he's working on a new solo record. He took a really long break. He like got really good at making pizza, opened up a pizza truck. He's like doing his thing, built his own little house out in North Carolina on like on some land. And he's like, I've been working on a record, and I was talking to, he was talking to some of his buddies who still run labels, but that his old band was signed to. And I asked them, I was like, if I was going to release this by myself, like, what would you recommend I do to promote it, to get it out there? And he's like, basically, he's like, it's probably what you would think. It's like, you need to become a content creator.
Oh,
You need to, and he's
yeah.
just like, I can't do that. Like, I can't give my time over to what it would take to try to get that out there. And I'm like, yeah, I just think it's a different world today. Um, I don't know. I don't know how
Yeah.
it works.
Outsmarting Simon sounds really familiar.
Yeah, they were
I came
on.
much later to the
Yeah,
scene, but
yeah.
what were they on?
Triple Crown
Oh,
Records.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're good. They were good. I mean, I think they another like short-lived band. They put out 2 records, but they're good records. So yeah, it's
What's it like for you to know that people still care? Like
it's
people still connect to these things,
it's
these
it's
songs.
wild to me. I mean, I think even when we got asked to play this festival and then they sent out the flyer, I was shocked at how high up our name was. Flyer, it's like, wow. Um, it's crazy, and it's crazy to me that we're like some of the company we're with, like, I think we're right next to Appleseed Cast, and we're friendly with those guys. Like when we got added to the flyer, Chris reached out and was like, super psyched to play with you. I go, oh my God, I can't wait to play with you guys again. I think the last time we played with them was in a basement in New Brunswick in
Yeah.
like 2000. And it's wild to me what I'm seeing on like Instagram and stuff like that is, and even Spotify, because I get like, we're on there and we get like, we've got a song with over 1 million listens. That's wild to me. We've got new people discovering us. We've got old fans who still remember us. Um, there are people like talking about us in social media and stuff. It's just insane. It's insane to me uh, that anybody cares. And this is the conversation I had with my friend the other day. Yeah, I just think, he's like, you guys wrote songs that connected with people. You got some really like killer songs that people love. You had a song on the Emo Diaries that was probably one of the best on that comp. And this is him saying it. I would never say this about myself. And then he was like, and you guys played like every fucking weekend. He's like,
Yeah.
there was a period of like 4 years where he's like, you may not have gotten to the West Coast much or at all. But if you lived in like the tri-state area or up and down the East Coast, like you guys were playing every weekend. You'd do like, Friday, Saturday, Sunday if you could. And so you're kind of getting out there and you put in the time and effort. And so I think he's like, I think the fact that people still listen and care and that new people are discovering you just kind of shows that there's something there, that people care. But I find it wild because I don't know. It's just strange. It's strange to put something out into the world and know that folks are like still into it and still
Yeah.
have fond memories of it, or that it, I think, which is the great thing about music, is it signals um, or creates some sort of memory that people like, or conjures up some kind of time, which is, I think, why we all love this stuff. But it's fun to know that people care. But it is just wild. I find it hard to believe. Um, and I'm constantly amazed when like somebody reaches out and they're like, "Oh, I mean the fucking there was a list of the singer from that band in the 1975 put out as a list of favorite albums, and one of our albums was on it." I'm like, "That's insane!" Like,
Yeah.
I know who that band is. I know they're very popular. The fact that he's ever listened to that record is wild to me. So I don't know. I'm shocked and taken aback by it. And even when we did that tour of Japan, I was like, how do all these people know or care?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's strange because I'm just a random dude living in the middle of New Jersey,
Yeah. I mean,
with
you
a blurred
created-
camera trying to hide all the fucking toys.
Well, it's better than my turtle in the background.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you created something that connects with people, and it, in some ways, like some guy on Instagram that I follow was like, I'm coming from Canada, was like, I have to go to this show now because Penfold is playing.
So crazy.
And yeah, it's nuts. Just got a couple more questions from you. What is something that you would tell your younger self now in terms of the band?
Probably don't be so shy. I think we missed opportunities as a band because we were scared, timid. I think didn't believe that people liked what we were doing. I think, like, specifically to my younger self as it relates to the band, it would be like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and we could get up on a stage and do what we did, but when we got off the stage, it was sort of like a different personality. I think for all of us, we're like, get up, we do our thing. When we got off, it was like really tough, I think, for us to feel comfortable in our own skin. And I think we missed a lot of opportunities. Not like, I don't know that we would, I don't know that things would have been better if we were bigger or if that became the path we took. I'm not like super concerned about that aspect of it, but I just think, and I learned it professionally. Like, it became very clear to me that, trust your instincts, trust the fact that there are people who want to hear what you have to say, especially if it's something you care about. I think we just weren't confident in ourselves back then. So, yeah.
Last question.
Sure.
Jason Gleason and I, do you know Jason?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I know of his work.
But
yeah.
Him and I were having a conversation about whether or not Central Jersey exists. So what is your contention on this?
I think there's a North Jersey and a South Jersey, and I think depending on who you talk to, South Jersey either starts higher or lower.
Yeah. It's either Taylor ham or pork roll, and that's where it kind of.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, when people ask where I'm from, I'm always like North Jersey, but then I'm like, it goes a lot more north from where.
Right.
But I think technically I would be considered more central, but I think I feel like it's always been north and south. Because there's parts of South Jersey where people talk with Southern accents where you're just like, where am I right now?
That accent is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might as well be a whole nother area. I mean, that's what people don't get about Jersey, right? It's like you come into the shithole of Newark and Elizabeth, and you're like, oh my God, what is this place?
Yeah.
The smell of like marsh and and then like it's like South Jersey. I mean, it's so rad. I miss a lot about Jersey.
Yeah.
So, especially the food. For sure. But even pizza is different and bagels are different down in in South Jersey than they are.
They are, yeah, but they're still good because you got great. Well, I guess technically that's still not South Jersey. I was going to say you got great pizza in Philly, but I guess that's like, and not saying Philly's Jersey, but that area outside, like right across there, which is where our drummer now lives. So like we always joke that he's in South Jersey now. But yeah,
and it's so funny because I remember when I was younger, like I was involved in church and stuff like that, and sometimes we would go to a church in Livingston and I'd be like, oh my god, this is so far away.
Yeah.
Like now I live in Washington State and it's like, 5 hours to get from top to bottom, and
it's not, exactly. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on, and I'm so thankful that we could actually get this together after like every little thing that happened.
Yeah.
I was like, seriously, I'm sick. Like, I
It's
lost
all
my
good.
voice, which is a really hard thing to do when you're a therapist and you have to talk to people. But
I bet, yeah. Well, I mean, this was awesome, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on, and appreciate you doing this. It's been fun chatting.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I will let you know when this comes out. It'll probably come out pretty soon. I'm trying my hardest to get to Best Friends Forever Festival. I just don't know if that's going to happen. This is our second house. So we shelled out. We're carrying 2 mortgages right now. Hoity-toity. But this is another question I have for you.
Yeah.
When you were doing renovations, did you find anything in the walls?
Oh, like anything interesting?
Yeah.
No, we didn't. I wish we did. But no, there was nothing weird in the walls.
Because like every place, my brother had his house renovated. We had our house renovated.
Yeah.
And there's my friend who's kind of like a contractor and stuff like that. He's like, I find stuff in these walls all the time. Yeah. Like he found like a tin soldier toy in our wall from like 1945. Wow. There was like a Liberty magazine from 1942. Like,
I love that people are using walls in houses as like time.
Right. Yeah. So I was just really interested if you had.
No, we didn't. We definitely had bats though. Like that was the worst. It was the day after they had pumped the new insulation in, and
did you spray foam or whatever?
Yeah, and I guess there were a family of bats like living in the walls, and one of them got into my wife in my bedroom while we were sleeping. She tapped me on the shoulder. She's like, "Is the radiator on?" And I was like, "What are you talking?" It was the middle of summer. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It sounds like it's on. I'm standing on the bed listening, and I'm realizing the sound's like moving, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And then the sound moves past the radiator behind my dresser, and then I just see like a little 3-fingered claw.
Oh my god!
And then this thing starts flying.
Terrified.
She's screaming, and I'm like, "Get out of the bed!" So that was fun.
That happened to my brother and his wife. Their cat brought in a live bat and let the bat go in the middle of the house.
The joys of homeowner. And then of course we call animal control, and they come and they can't find.
Like, you people are crazy. There's nothing here.
Yeah. That was great. Anyway.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much, man.
Man.
You have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Cheers.
I'll see you later. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Well, that does it for another episode of Welcome to the Scene. I'd like to thank my guest, Brian Carley, for coming on again. Penfold is going to be playing Best Friends Forever Festival in Las Vegas in October. You should definitely go see them. Welcome to the Scene is available on all major podcasting platforms, as well as Instagram @TheScenecast. We'll see you next time.